All right, let's check out how this Kenya man came into this country on a visa, legally came into this country, served his country in the U.S. Army, I believe, a couple of branches, and then was later deported. This is an example of how this country can sometimes treat individuals. Let's check this out. It's Ricky Rich with Black Primacy. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications.
I'm Katie Legrone. They came to our country to serve and protect for the promise of becoming U.S. citizens. But some veterans tell me America abandoned them, and one says he was even deported. Speaking to us from an apartment in San Diego, David Bariu's American story
I came here to further my education.
began more than 2 decades ago and nearly 10,000 miles away.
I was born in Nairobi, Kenya.
In 1998, Bariu came to America on a student visa. While here, he says he was persuaded by an Army recruiter to enlist, promising him free school and U.S. citizenship.
I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Bariu joined, serving in the Army and eventually the Air Force Reserves.
For the love of serving the country, for the love of defending the Constitution.
But by 2007, Bariu says he was forced to leave the military after his recruiter was court-martialed and found guilty of unlawfully enlisting African national students, among them Bariu. While Army discharge papers he provided us show he was honorably discharged for an erroneous entry, Army investigative records he also provided us appear to detail how Bariu was one of dozens of Kenyan students recruited in a fraudulent enlistment scheme.
My recruiter was fraudulently recruiting internationals to meet his quota, the recruiting quota.
We reached out to the Army about the case and have not heard back. But what happened to Bariu after he left the military inspired him to talk about it publicly.
It's difficult to explain what reasoning they used to justify my deportation.
Bariu, who thought he was legally enlisted when he joined the military, was stripped of his military certification and VA card and deported back to Kenya. But not before he says he also spent a year detained at a Texas migrant detention center.
I don't know if they were trying to make me give up. I don't know if they were trying to radicalize me and make me fight the system or say bad things about the United States.
Bariu is among an unknown number of U.S. veterans who honorably served in America's armed forces but then got deported without the American citizenship and other benefits they claim they were promised.
This problem is so big that the federal government itself doesn't even know the scope of the problem.
The rarely talked about issue highlighted by the Veterans Law Practicum at UC Berkeley in this recent report titled Broken Promises.
Despite being required to do so, they are not tracking the number of veterans they deport. There are requirements in place saying that military service is supposed to be taken into account during immigration proceedings. That rule has not been followed.
When asked for a response about deported veterans and the allegations of broken citizenship promises they face, the Department of Defense referred us to the Veterans Administration, who told us in a lengthy email they are working with the Department of Homeland Security to, quote, identify and prioritize the return of current and former U.S. military members who were removed from the United States and helping them access benefits, including immigration and naturalization assistance.
This is a veteran issue. It's not an immigration issue because we were veterans when we got deported.
In 2022, 14 years after he was deported, Bariu was allowed back into America through a new government program for deported veterans. A few months later, he finally got the U.S. citizenship he says he was promised by that recruiter decades earlier.
How many years did this?
The U.S. citizenship deported veterans. A few months later, through a new government program, was deported, Bariu was allowed
deported.
In 2022, 14 years after he was
14
deported,
years.
Bariu was allowed back into America through a new government program for deported veterans. A few months later, he finally got the U.S. citizenship he says he was promised by that recruiter decades earlier.
It was overdue. I was happy.
Today, the dad of two is going to school to become a nurse. He's also co-founder of a support group for deported veterans, hoping his story raises awareness about a problem facing some who come to this country to defend it, but are ignored when they need the saving.
Deported veterans are dying across the borders. They know about us. But when you're trying to get back the legal way, we have so many blockades, it becomes a complicated mess.
While Bariu has his legal status, he's still fighting for the GI benefits he was promised, which would help him pay for school. But despite everything he's been through, he tells me he considers himself a proud American. I'm Katie.
Man, 14 years. Look, as far as I'm concerned, if I don't care what you look like, what you identify as, if you are willing to lay your life on the line for a country, you deserve citizenship. Right? A law-abiding person that comes over or is here regardless of your whole situation and is willing to lay their life down for the country, lay their life on the line for the country, deserves citizenship. There's a lot of people in this country, born and raised in this country, that aren't willing to lay their life down, lay their life on the line. So, I like what he said earlier. He said, this is not a immigration issue. This is a veteran issue. It wasn't my fault that y'all had some people in there doing some unscrupulous activities. Like, I still enlisted. I still served, and y'all kicked me out of the country for 14 years. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy he got back. I am happy he was able to get back. It just sucks. You come over, you do all the hard work, and you get a 14-year. You get set back 14 years from all the things he could have been done with school. He could have had his family started. He could have, think of all the things he could have did within that 14 years. Started a business, bought a house, traveled. He could have did so much in those 14 years. That was pretty much robbed of him after, he paid his due. So, I mean, but I want to tell him, welcome to the United States. Unfortunately, this is how things happen to certain individuals. Depending on what you look like, depending on where you're from, depending on what you claim, this is what happens. So, welcome. Y'all let me know what y'all think. All right, it's Ricky Rich with Black Primacy. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications.